10th century, amidst the turmoil of the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms period, Chinese forces first unleashed the power of gunpowder in warfare. In 919 CE, fire arrows, rockets, tipped with explosive compounds, rained down on enemy ships during a naval battle against the southern Tang, marking the dawn of gunpowder warfare. By the Song dynasty, 960–1279, Chinese armies wielded fire lances, primitive yet deadly gunpowder-propelled weapons, and later developed grenades, bombs, and cannons as Mongol invasions loomed. China's innovation would not remain confined to its borders. Through the Silk Road, the knowledge of gunpowder seeped into the Islamic world, reaching the Abbasid Caliphate, Persians, and Mamluks. By the 13th century, the Mongols carried Chinese-style bombs and rockets westward, introducing them to Middle Eastern and European battlefields. Islamic scholars, such as Hassan al-Ramma, refined these techniques, while the Moors and Byzantines brought gunpowder warfare. Firearm technology and gunpowder into Europe and Africa was significantly influenced by the Moors and Jewish trading networks. Originating in China, gunpowder technology spread westward through the Silk Road and was adopted by Islamic empires such as the Abbasids, Mamluks, and Ottomans. Firearms and gunpowder technology were disseminated through Islamic empires to Africa before spreading widely across Europe. The Islamic world, acting as a bridge between China, where gunpowder originated, and the rest of the Old World, played a key role in introducing and refining gunpowder technologies. The vast Islamic trade routes across the Sahara, Red Sea, and Indian Ocean facilitated the movement of goods, including gunpowder and early firearms, into Africa. North African Islamic states like the Almoravids, Almohads, and later the Sultanate of Morocco were early adopters of gunpowder weapons due to their close ties to the Islamic world. Gunpowder weapons reached West African empires like Mali, Songhai, and Kanem-Bornu via North African Islamic traders and scholars. By the 15th and 16th centuries, firearms became increasingly important in the military strategies of African states. For example, the Songhai Empire adopted gunpowder weapons, but their limited supply and expertise in using firearms were factors in their defeat by Morocco at the Battle of Tondibi, 1591. The Ottoman Empire, a leading power in the development of gunpowder weapons, also disseminated firearms through its territories in North Africa, Egypt, Sudan, and Libya. African states like the Fungi Sultanate in Sudan and Ethiopia engaged with Ottoman traders and military advisors, adopting gunpowder weapons in their conflicts. In the early 16th century, the balance of power in the Horn of Africa began to shift as foreign empires cast their influence over the region. Among them, the Ottoman Empire sought to extend its reach, securing dominance over the Red Sea trade routes. It was during this time, between 1526 and 1529, that the Adal Sultanate, led by the ambitious Imam Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi, received its first shipment of firearms and cannons from the Ottomans, a gift that would change the course of history. The Ottomans, having established key garrisons in Massawa and Suakin, saw Adal as a valuable ally in their struggle against Portuguese expansion, seeking to strengthen their foothold in the region. They supplied matchlock muskets, small cannons, and military advisors to train Adal's warriors in the deadly, new art of gunpowder warfare. By 1529, the impact of these weapons was felt on the battlefield. At the Battle of Shimbra Kure, Adal's gun-wielding soldiers crushed the traditional Ethiopian army, marking the beginning of a brutal campaign that saw Imam Ahmad Gran's forces pushed deep into Abyssinian territory. Over the next decade, the Sultanate continued to receive Ottoman reinforcements and weapons, allowing it to overrun much of Ethiopia, razing churches, sacking cities, and forcing Emperor Galawdewos to the brink of defeat. But war is never one-sided. The same weapons that had given Adal the upper hand would soon be matched. As Ethiopia turned to its own, European allies, the Portuguese, who arrived with their own muskets and cannons, setting the stage for one of the most dramatic military showdowns in African history. The forces of Imam Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi, known as Gran the Left-Handed, with the aid of Turkish advisors and soldiers, Gran's Adal Sultanate launched a devastating invasion. burning churches, shattering armies, and bringing the mighty Ethiopian Empire to the brink of collapse. Desperate for aid, Emperor Galawdewos, who had inherited the throne in 1540, sent urgent pleas for assistance. His calls were answered by an unlikely ally, the Portuguese Empire, which saw an opportunity to counter Ottoman influence in the region. In 1541, a small but powerful force of Portuguese musketeers, led by Cristóvão da Gama, son of the famous explorer Vasco da Gama, arrived on Ethiopian soil. They came bearing not just muskets, but the knowledge of how to use them, offering Ethiopia its first real countermeasure against the firearm-wielding invaders. For 2 years, Ethiopian warriors, now armed with Portuguese guns and trained in European battle tactics, fought to reclaim their land. In 1543, at the decisive Battle of Huayna Daga, Galawdewos and his Portuguese allies delivered a crushing defeat to Grand's forces. The Imam was slain in battle, and the Ottomans withdrew, marking the end of Adal's dominance over Ethiopia. During the Age of Exploration, 15th to 16th centuries, coastal kingdoms like Benin and Congo integrated firearms into their armies and used them in regional conflicts. By the time gunpowder weapons were adopted in Europe, early 14th century, they had already been in circulation in Islamic and African territories, highlighting how Africa and the Islamic world were ahead in gunpowder technology before its full proliferation in Europe. The Moors, during their rule over the Iberian Peninsula from 711 to 1492, played a pivotal role in introducing gunpowder and firearms to Europe. Historical records indicate that the Moors demonstrated firearms in Western Europe as early as 1118 CE at Saragossa. This early introduction laid the foundation for the development and refinement of gunpowder weapons in Europe. In Africa, Jewish trading networks were instrumental in the dissemination of firearms. These merchants, often of mixed Portuguese-African heritage, actively participated in the arms trade, supplying West African markets with weapons, including swords. Their trade activities were crucial in linking European and Asian weaponry to African kingdoms. Following the Reconquista, Europeans inherited the gunpowder technology introduced by the Moors. By the 14th and 15th centuries, European states began producing their own firearms, developing cannons and handheld weapons on a larger scale. This advancement was facilitated by the foundational knowledge provided by the Moors. What began as a Chinese alchemical discovery had, through trade, war and conquest, reshaped battlefields across continents. The Black African Moors were instrumental in introducing gunpowder technology to Europe. These contributions were pivotal in shaping the military landscapes of both continents. The Emirate of Granada, 13th-15th century, was among the first regions in Western Europe to adopt gunpowder weaponry, influenced by the Islamic world's connections to China and the Middle East. By the 1340s, the Moors of Granada used early cannons during sieges, particularly in conflicts against Christian forces of the Reconquista. The Battle of Algeciras, 1343-1344, during the siege of Algeciras, is one of the earliest documented uses of gunpowder artillery in Western Europe. The Moorish defenders used madfar, primitive cannons, to repel the Castilian forces. This marked one of the first recorded instances of gunpowder artillery in Iberian warfare, although it was not until the late Middle Ages that gunpowder weapons became decisive in Western European and Moorish battles. The integration of gunpowder marked a transformative shift in military history, shaping the outcome of conflicts like the Reconquista and beyond. From its origins in China to its refinement in the Islamic world and its early adoption in Africa, we see how knowledge and innovation moved through interconnected trade routes long before Europe emerged as a dominant force. Yet, this narrative also challenges us to be ever mindful of Eurocentric interpretations of technological history. Firearms did not begin with Europe's so-called gunpowder revolution. Instead, they passed through centuries of African and Islamic ingenuity before arriving on European soil. The emergence of Europe as a dominant power during the age of gunpowder was not solely due to technological mastery. It was deeply tied to its colonial strategy, which used weapons and gunpowder as tools of coercion in trade deals with client states. European powers overwhelmed these regions with firearms, enslaved women, and extracted prisoners to fuel the transatlantic slave trade. This strategy of exploitation allowed Europe to destabilize powerful kingdoms, enrich itself through human suffering, and propagate itself within its territories. One truth becomes undeniable. As we trace the journey of gunpowder and firearms through history, the spread of this revolutionary technology shaped the balance of power across continents.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.